I'm a firm believer in jiu-jitsu's for everybody, and like being good at grappling and being good at competing are two entirely different things. That's a unique skill set, is being good at competing. And so like that's a very difficult thing to learn. So having a team, like having your buddies to go out there with and the pressure is off you, it makes competing easier and it makes that skill set easier.
And it's way more fun.
Exactly.
This is Top Team Talks. I'm Spencer, I'm here with Curtis, and we are the co-owners of the Atlanta Submission Series that we actually hosted here at American Top Team Sandy Springs. And we just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the whole thing with it, why we did it, why we wanted to do it, and what we have the plans for the future here, especially doing it at American Top Team Sandy Springs.
Well, because we're gluttons for punishment.
So Curtis and I both are jiu-jitsu practitioners. I just do jiu-jitsu. Curtis is also a BJJ or a judo black belt. My background in jiu-jitsu is I'm a white belt right now under Ernesto, and I felt like there was a big gap in how the competition sphere was done currently right now.
Hey guys, sorry.
Oh.
Can you run through?
Yes. No worries. Also, Spencer, would you mind sitting like the way Curtis is?
Oh yeah.
Don't break your ankles. You're totally fine if you feel comfortable that way, but just for a second.
No, you're good.
Stop being so tall.
Just making sure you look good.
I forget that I'm tall and I cross my legs back. Do you want me to restart it from the beginning?
Yes, I think that'll be good.
Okay.
Good practice run. All right. 3, 2, and 1.
Hey guys, welcome to Top Team Talks. My name's Spencer Hall and I'm here with Curtis Estes. We actually are the ones that ran the Atlanta Submission Series here at American Top Team Sandy Springs. And we just wanted to go over and talk with you a little bit about it, why we ran it, why we're gonna do it in the future, and what we see the future of jiu-jitsu grappling really looking like. So Curtis, I mean, you're a judo black belt and you've been doing competition for a while. What did you think about the whole submission series and why we even wanted to do it in the first place?
I mean, I think my biggest takeaway is mission accomplished. We wanted to provide something new that previously wasn't being provided into this sphere that's unique to this community. And I mean, I think we absolutely did that. And, you know, a secondary kind of part of our ambition was obviously creating more opportunities. And to see that other tournaments, you know, like sort of similar to ours are taking off too, it's really nice to see that we've actually created like a tangible ripple effect.
There's a lot more like independent tournaments that are now popping up, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
What's your like competition background? Like how long have you been competing for?
So for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm not anybody like super impressive or important in the fight community, but I have been training martial arts consistently since I was, you know, about 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started Taekwondo and I was like a scrawny little 6-year-old. I actually competed a lot in that growing up. Got into Muay Thai and boxing in my teens. Coached to put myself through college at the University of Georgia. Did a couple of like amateur smokers and kickboxing and boxing throughout college to, you know, kind of like lend credibility to myself as a coach. And then in my like mid-20s, I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'll bust into MMA, and I started training BJJ, and it, you know, became very like apparent very quick, like, okay, there's a lot to this grappling stuff, and this is very hard and very difficult to unlock, but it's a lot of fun doing it. And you know, like as I got out of college, like I went into the Marine Corps. I had a combat adjacent MOS that was very physical. It required a lot of like hiking, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Couple hip injuries later, you know, next thing you know, I'm not striking so much anymore. So started like late 20s or so, BJJ became something that I did full time, and I really kind of threw myself into the training. Started doing judo maybe like 2020 or so because I wanted to get better at takedowns to give myself an edge in the Octopus Sandy Springs training room. Obviously a lot of gi jiu-jitsu going on there. So started doing judo, fell in love with the sport. Over the last few years, I've really missed, you know, having like something more active in my life going on. Like, you know, so competing in jiu-jitsu kind of became like my way to fill that void a little bit, you
I mean,
know?
that's
like,
the same with me, because in college I played lacrosse, and so like I was so used to just training for something throughout the week, and then at the weekend going for like this big game or something. So it was cool now to get back into jiu-jitsu, where I was able to like train throughout the week and then like hit an open mat or something on the weekend to like test how I was really doing. But then that's why we wanted to create the submission series, because it felt like we weren't even getting good competition.
No.
Not really good competition, but it was like organized competition. We wanted more of it.
Exactly, and that's more of a referendum, not so much on obviously the population of grapplers in the area, because there's insane levels of competition. It's more so just the fact that like for a city that's so innovative with their jiu-jitsu, we haven't really been innovative with our competition or showcasing
Well,
that
all
jiu-jitsu.
the competition is just so like commercialized, it feels like. It's so like big box coming in doing whatever they want just to make as much money and leave. It's not like people like really promoting people in the community and like showcasing how cool of athletes we really have. Like I travel a lot for work, and out of all the cities that I go to, it feels like Atlanta has the most gyms out of anybody or out of any of the cities that I go to. So like to be able to promote these athletes is just something different and unique and cool.
So I think we've really like kind of satisfied a lot of our original mission statement, which was obviously to provide normal everyday hobbyist practitioners with a way to have access to an elevated platform
And to get their name out against like good competitors in the area that like have a well-established competition regimen already, and now they get to go against those people and get their name out against them and like showcase how really cool they are.
Yeah, because I mean there are a lot of like local talent that's really having a moment over the last few years. Like look at Kevin Burek, obviously is the best example, who competed in the Atlanta Submission Series. Like him doing PGF, him going and winning 2 weight classes in Midwest Finishers. Like being able to compete with a guy like that and to do it well as like a purple belt hobbyist, like we saw a lot of the Superfly guys do. I mean, that's just got to be insane for your gym stock or for your personal stock as an athlete or for the stock of your team, to be able to say like, we compete with these guys on these cards, we compete well with them, and like it's not just one-hit wonders throughout the city. Like this is the level of talent in Atlanta, and we're coming for you.
And it was cool to be able to do it in a local area like here. Like we didn't have to like travel super far out of the way to get everyone to come together. Like we were able to like get everybody to a central location here at ATT Sandy Springs and like get a really cool event. And it was cool because it felt like it was almost like a fight club in here, because it was like there was no bleachers, everyone was just huddled around like watching.
Oh, the wall?
Yeah, the wall was super cool, being able to play with that. Like just using the environment of where we were at to utilize the submission series was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it was obviously like one of our big goals with this was we were really hoping we'd be able to showcase not just the level of grappling talent amongst the grapplers, but like how each individual affiliation in the city actually brings a lot to the table too. And they all have kind of their own unique styles, their own unique way of like blending new meta versus classic jiu-jitsu. And I mean, everybody represented their affiliations beautifully throughout the entire.
It was cool to see like the MMA style out of like ATT Team Lima to like the super new gen style out of like Superfly. So and like Jake showing up, all those kind of moves. So it was cool to see all the different metas of jiu-jitsu like being showcased during that thing.
And I mean, it also makes you wonder if we'd have played more 80s music throughout the matches, whether or not Superfly could have won some
I think they actually would have given them some superpowers.
I think it would have. I think it would have. So sorry to Jake for that. But I mean, also I think one of the most unique and rewarding experiences throughout this whole thing was we made a lot of incredible connections. We met a lot of really unique.
I feel like we really brought like Atlanta together. Like we brought like the ATT gyms together. We brought Superfly. We're mixing all these gyms together where there's so many of us, and so we're able to condense it down into a small, cool community of people that are like, wanting to get behind a really cool aspect and promote jiu-jitsu here.
Yeah, where everybody got to focus on the positive aspects of competition. Like everybody showing up, like hyping each other up. Creating this really electric, really like tense for all the good reasons kind of atmosphere that, like the viewers at home who were just kind of tuning in to see the spectacle really appreciated. And it led to these like, like these really kind of iconic sort of moments, like Beto getting that straight ankle lock
Yeah.
against, you know, like
A 50-pound gap. And
yeah,
be able to tap somebody
exactly.
is crazy.
Yeah, like the level of jiu-jitsu showcased, and like some of the mismatches throughout the quartets or three-person teams too, were really unique to see. Like some David versus Goliath stories kind of play out.
Yeah.
Which kind of creating a team format like that, where we're going off of average weights or cumulative weights. There's never going to be like this perfectly balanced equation. There's always going to be a little bit of chaos in the mix, a little bit of what if. And I think that's what's so exciting and so unique about the team format, which really makes this a lot more interesting for casual observers.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just jiu-jitsu's having a moment right now too.
Well, especially with CJI going on, like we tried to emulate what they were doing, not like perfectly, like not copied it like a copycat, but I mean, they didn't have it behind a paywall. It wasn't on Flow Grappling. It was accessible to everybody. It was easily shareable. There was high-level people in there. There was really cool people that people knew in there that have a social media following. And now there's even cooler people that are coming out of this, like Lucas Kennard, who's not really very well known, but now everyone saw his K-guard and what he was able to do with that, and everyone's gonna wanna go and look at that now. But it was because they were able to see it on a free platform where everyone can look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with CJI, you're gonna have like some really explosive matches because you've got the best of the best across the world. And when you don't necessarily have like the entire planet at your disposal to pull from, sometimes just a unique format can be very attention grabbing.
Do you see like the Atlanta Submission Series becoming like a recruiting ground for something like CJI or PJF or something like that maybe?
I think as jiu-jitsu becomes more mainstream and people get more excited about watching events, I think you're gonna start to see leagues take shape. You know, I think it's gonna be kind of converted into the format that pretty much any other mainstream sport is. And you're gonna see feeder leagues, you're gonna see pipeline leagues, you're gonna see major leagues, minor leagues.
I just think you're gonna see a lot more athletes that are gonna pop off from this, and you're gonna see a lot more explosion out of this. Because Craig blew, I mean, the Google search results were like 4 million. There was 1 million people that watched the first day. I can't remember what the second day was, but the amount of people that tuned into it, they absolutely crushed ADCC's numbers, which is crazy.
One point I know I've made before, and like another appearance we made, was that what I find so appealing right now about the competition jiu-jitsu scene is that it's just big enough and well-funded enough and mainstream enough to have like really awesome production quality, to have like...
Well, and we're in the age now where it's super easy to put on these events.
Exactly, but
like Craig put on this event in 3 months.
But it's still very underground and rough around the edges and like unrefined. It feels like, for those of you who grew up maybe in like the 80s or the 90s, you probably remember the extreme sports era where like BMX, like skateboarding, snowboarding, like aggressive inline, like motocross, that was like this really big, like X Games was new, like... And there was this whole like zeitgeist of like punk rock, and you know, like we were kind of rejecting the mainstream around it. And it was just this once in a lifetime kind of cultural experience that I haven't felt anything similar to.
Dude, I miss slam ball more than anything with the trampolines, bro. That was the most fun.
Until I started watching competitive jiu-jitsu. It's very reminiscent of like the late 90s, early 2000s extreme sports community. And I think we're about to see a similar explosion.
Well, I just think there's also just huge lack of like live entertainment right now on like social media or like stuff that you watch. Like you watch stuff on like Twitch or YouTube, you see all these people that are live streaming, and they're like, everybody just wants to watch something live. You don't want to watch something that was replayed 15 years ago or something.
Well,
or
the
like
problem
watching the latest
is
things in the Game of Thrones.
When you have infinite amounts of content at your fingertips around the clock, you've seen it all.
You just want to watch the most immediate thing, the newest thing that's out there.
It's all been done to death, and so anybody who's willing to try and innovate or do something new or unique...
It's always exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's always exciting, and it's always a breath of fresh air. And I mean, I think that the big takeaway is that I'm hoping we're showing people that it's okay to try and do that. Like, it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to be inexperienced. I think it's important to be transparent with people about that. Like we were.
That's what Craig was with his thing. Like, he showed everybody all the numbers, everything. Like, even when they were giving away the car in the back, like, they had the guy pull up the Excel sheet of every single ticket that was bought and typed it in, and Craig just said random numbers. But it was like the full transparency of the whole thing. Like, you know that there was no like gimmick behind the scenes or like something else was happening. Like, it was just like a authentic, true event with like an authentic person. Granted, Craig's the most crazy person on the internet that I've met in the last couple of years, but it's hilarious and it makes a really cool brand.
Yeah, it absolutely. It's compelling, you know, like big personalities doing new things, trying to shake up established institutions like ADCC. You know, it's all this very.
That was crazy that they put it on the same weekend.
It's just like all this counterculture type things that we're at the forefront of here are really, really interesting.
Do you think that they did it at the same weekend as like a marketing ploy? But
absolutely.
But it was at different times. So it wasn't really at the same time.
Well, I think that
You could make the argument that some of the athletes probably could have competed in both.
I think he wanted to make it controversial without completely, you know, I think he still had a big degree of like sympathy for, you know, like the plight of a lot of the people who wanted to stick with ADCC, right? Like, he didn't necessarily want to penalize those athletes. So I don't think he really wanted to torpedo the event as much as he wanted to prove the point that if you do the right thing and, you know, proceed with this degree of altruism in what you're trying to do, a lot of people are going to side with you.
It's just crazy that 2 people won $2 million yesterday.
That's
so much money that is made in jiu-jitsu where you don't see that ever. Like, the most amount of money was ADCC, and I think it was like, what, $30,000 or something?
Yeah, it's great to see that.
Do you think it's going to be $1 million again next year, or do you think it's going to be more?
I think it'll be at least $1 million next year. You know, I don't think Craig's the kind of guy who does something big and then follows it up with something underwhelming. I think somebody like him, you're always going to see him pushing the envelope, and the day he stops is either the day people stop responding to him, or it's the day where he's gone so big that he can't possibly improve on it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of the model I hope we adopt. Like, I want to keep doing like big, outlandish, ambitious projects that, you know, like, we'll see how well executed they are, but, you know, until people stop responding to what we're doing, or until we've done something so big that I don't know how we could ever follow it up, like, I want to keep innovating.
Do you think we can
too.
build the wall here or like the little slanted wall? Do you think we can build it here at ATT Sandy Springs?
I think where there's a will, there's a way.
I think we could build it.
Maybe if ATT moves into like one of the bigger facilities in here, we could get a wall built.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. Get a wall classroom, an octagon, kickboxing area.
So I saw that CJI is going to be again next year, and ADCC is every 2 years, right?
Right.
So do you think ADCC is going to put on an event next year now because CJI is doing an event every year now?
I don't think so. I think Mo's going to want some time to like, you know, see what Craig does next. I think he's going to want some time to get back to the drawing board and think about like the most appropriate way to respond to this.
I mean, how do you compete with $1 million though?
Yeah, $1,000,001. You know, like you've got to answer the call.
Because the ADCC has the reputation with the medals and like how long it's been around, but then like $1 million, you can't compete with money.
But I mean, to the same degree, like look at the old guard in jiu-jitsu. Like for a while, it was IBJJF was the end-all be-all of how your medal was tested and measured on the stage of competition as a grappler. And then over time, you know, they focused a lot more on, let's just call it monetization, instead of continuing to provide a platform or to provide some way to compensate the athletes. And as a result, people have really stopped. Like IBJJF events don't have the same level of gravitas that they did before in this community.
Well, I just think everyone's starting to realize that there's such a money grab in so many of these different things. Like IBJJF, you have to buy a year subscription and then also sign up for the events throughout the year. Like I think to compete at the Atlanta Open, it's like if you were to do gi, no gi, and this like the subscription you have to get, it would be like north of $350.
Yeah.
For 1 week.
Which is outrageous.
When most of athletes that even do jiu-jitsu in the first place do it as an escape or do something like just for as a hobby or something cool. So to spend that much money at an event like that is crazy.
Yeah, and also let's face it too, like a lot of your very active competitors aren't necessarily like your most affluent people either.
Yeah.
You know, like so to have barriers to entry like that is, I mean, that makes jiu-jitsu less accessible for everybody. And I don't know about you, but I'm a firm believer in jiu-jitsu's for everybody, and like, you know, sometimes it's best to just compete.
Yeah.
And we'll worry about all getting rich together later.
So we kind of went over everything with like why you wanted to compete, why like we compete in the first place. Like what did you feel like was the issue with the competition sphere and like why we wanted to do what we did with the Atlanta Submission Series?
I think that a lot of it was just very played out. Like it's gotten so saturated time and time again. And all in the interest of like pursuing efficiency or pursuing profit. So you've got a lot of these like tournament style events where, you know, okay, let's cram 16 mats in there. Like everyone's toiling away all day in anonymity, like no one's really center stage. You know, we've got all of these weight classes and all of these like divisions. So sure, you know, like the middle of the bell curve will have respectable sized divisions, but I mean, at the end, like it's like a running joke, you know. Like if you're a lightweight masters purple belt, you're lucky if you're gonna have anybody in your bracket.
Exactly.
And so you're gonna get condensed anyway to a younger or a lighter or a younger and lighter. So it's just one of those things where you pay a lot of money for no exposure, and in a lot of ways, you're not really even guaranteed that good of a test of your personal development. Like for me, I crave a test, you know, like I love to give myself adversity to try and overcome in my life. And that's what makes jiu-jitsu so unique and special for me. So to have this feeling of, well, the best I can do is I pay, you know, 125, 150 bucks to go waste an entire day in this sweaty high school gym. Nobody's going to see me.
Get
Maybe
staff after.
Exactly. I'll get staff after. You know, it's just like, it's not a good return on investment.
Yeah.
And after I started doing like super fights and stuff, you know, that just felt a lot more special. It felt a lot more unique. And it's like maybe hobbyists or like people who otherwise wouldn't compete might be a little more willing to step out of their comfort zone if it feels like the juice is worth the squeeze. Like they'll actually get recognition.
Well,
There's
it just feels
actually
like you put in so much work and effort into training, into jiu-jitsu, and then you go to this oversaturated market of tournaments where there's so many people there, it's just not even a fun time, and then you just don't feel like you're getting recognized personally for what you did unless you did really, really good and you got a gold medal. So I just feel like that's honestly why I feel like we did this submission series, is just because like,
make jiu-jitsu fun.
it just makes it more fun. You get to compete with your friends, you get to show up with your friends, you get to showcase how everything was with everything and just why you want to compete in the first place.
It also makes it
why
a
you do
lot
jiu-jitsu.
easier if you're new to competing, which I'll harp on this till I'm blue in the face. Being good at grappling and being good at competing are two entirely different things. That's a unique skill set, is being good at competing. And so like that's a very difficult thing to learn. So having a team, like having your buddies to go out there with and the pressure is off you, it makes competing easier and it makes that skill set easier to
And
develop.
it's way more fun.
Exactly. And so giving people extra reps, you know, like getting some competition rounds in, that's another unique aspect of this. And it's just cool to see like Top Team as an ecosystem in Atlanta being at the forefront of a lot of like new things, like Top Team talks like this. This is a really unique
thing, and like the tournament that they're trying to implement with everybody in the area, like a lot of cool things that they're really trying to do.
Yeah, and I just think it's awesome to see jiu-jitsu institutions kind of evolving and transcending all of these like classical notions of what these places really are. You know, this isn't just a fight gym. Like there's all kinds of interesting things going on.
There's so
here.
much you can get out of a jiu-jitsu gym besides just showing up and training.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that the community has responded extremely positively to stuff like this. And I think that a lot of people are trying to do more with like their gym, with their athletes, with their coaches, with the training time they spend together. And it's just awesome to see the community's growing right now.
It's going to be so big in these next couple of years that I bet the next time we come on this podcast, when we do our next season,
Yeah.
or whatever we come on next, that it'll be twice as big, or we'll have the recognition will be way up there. So it's just crazy to see just how like the exponential growth of jiu-jitsu really has been. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for what we've been talking about today. So thank you so much for everything, guys, and talking with us. My name's Spencer. This is Curtis. This is American Top Team Talks. Hopefully you'll see us again here soon, but I had a blast talking with you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm doing on the grind.